Professor Djeflat is a very well-known name in the field of academia. He was appointed full professor in economics at the University of Oran in Algeria in 1992, where he held the position of Dean of the Faculty of Economics, Chairman of Scientific Council, and member of the Scientific Board of the Center of Applied Economics for Development. He currently works at the University of Lille in France, where he teaches industrial and development economics and is senior fellow at the Claire's Laboratory. Is that correct pronunciation? Yes. And he is the founder and current chairman of the MAG here for Maghreb, Maghreb Technology Network. And Professor Djeflat is going to talk to us about promoting sustainable industrialization and foster innovation through a PPP in Africa. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very happy to be here, and I would like to thank the Joint Unit and Petru Dimitri and WASD and my friend Alam for inviting me. Indeed, I belong to this network and another network, which is GlobalX, which is more international network. And basically, we haven't done actually empirical work, so this is just a research agenda starting. But I thought, as I was invited, to share some of the preliminary thought with you and see how you react. So the issue is, of course, promoting sustainable industrialization and basically thinking around the SDG 9, as has been mentioned earlier, to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. But more precisely on the issue of sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. I will not look at infrastructure this time, because I believe, as the UN General Secretary said, without technology and innovation, industrialization will not happen, and without industrialization, sustainable development will not happen. But of course, a lot of academic work has also been done around the issue of necessity of industrializing Africa, Roderick, and so forth. So I think this is an issue which everybody agrees upon, that we have. Africa has to go a big way into industrialization. And SDG 9, of course, has got targets, and I will not go through these targets. You could read them. Some targets around industry, some others around innovation issues, and some others about ICT targets. So time will not be enough to explain them. Of course, it is a matter of inclusive and sustainable innovation-driven industrial development, ICT, as put forward by some institution. And of course, it's a whole range of issues and objectives, going from poverty reduction, employment, wastage, avoiding wastage of resources, environment degradation, and education and entrepreneurship for innovation. So some of the key issues is, of course, how important is the SDG 9 to the development of Africa, because I think it's an important, it's an opportunity to raise this question, and what is the situation, what could PPP role could be played to enhance and accelerate SDG 9, what avenues, potential synergies, and what issues and challenges. As you could see, there are a lot of questions, so I may not have the answers to all, but at least it is the time to raise them. SDG, of great importance for Africa. Of course, I mean, if you look by all standards, Africa is not performing well on the industrial side. If you look at the manufacturing value added and on the innovation scores, if you look at, though we are not performing. Even worse, some African countries which started industrializing, in fact have gone downturn. They are deindustrializing because of a variety of reasons. I will not go into this time. So all these are, of course, in figures. There is no need to go all the statistics because they're all here to confirm what I have said, and time is very short. And also on the knowledge issue, Africa is not necessarily doing good compared to the other continents. And some of the work we have done to link innovation, sustainability, or environment protection and knowledge harnessing clearly shows there is a correlation between the two. In other words, the more you are knowledgeable and the higher you have the chance to protect the environment. This is but just preliminary. So the need of public-private partnership for SDG implementation is raised as an issue. Of course, the first thing is this deficit, major deficit in terms of funding and in terms of performances. The progress or assessment of the progress made in SDGs in 2017 shows on all grounds, all indicators, manufacturing, R&D, technological complexity, ICTs, Africa is, of course, not performing well. And that is an issue which, of course, everybody has already acknowledged and shown in previous interventions. So I will not do. But PPP is not only about funding, it's not only about statistics, figures, it's also about other issues which are related to, which have been largely covered, but I will raise them again. It's about, of course, shared objectives, mutual investment, risk sharing, value, trust, because we are talking on very delicate aspect, innovating. And innovating is a lot of interacting between actors. And unless there is trust, of course, the PP will not be there to support innovation. But of course, when you are talking about PPP, then you have to choose what kind of models. I think there are about 25 modes of PPP. So which one is adequate for Africa? And is there only one adequate for Africa? And also mode of governance and the right blend of finance. PPP for SDG in Africa, some of the, this has been already covered because there are a lot of complementarities. First, within the goals themselves. And you could see that if you look carefully at SDG 9 and SDG 17, which is partnership, has been largely presented here, you saw a lot of SDG 9 objectives are already embedded in SDG 17. So one of the, that's why the silo approach, which of course we have to be against, is not the right thing to do. Is really kind some synergy between the various goals. And of course, it covers financial issues, technology, and capacity building. And if I had time, I would go in detail. But my paper is in the book, and I think you could read that in more details. But also the other agendas, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, also presents some of the recommendations which are geared towards advancing, furthering the SDG 9, acknowledging the same handicap of technology divide. Then you have also research, capacity building, innovation enabling environment, entrepreneurship, and of course the mode of mobilizing the finances and some of the institutional mechanisms which are presented. If we examine also the Africa 2063 agenda, at least the first 10 years of implementation up to 2023, of course you have also some elements which complete and can further the goals of industrialization and innovation. It says in a nutshell, well-educated citizens and skills, revolution underpinned by science, technology, innovation, sustainable and inclusive economic growth, STI-driven industrialization, economic diversification are some of the. And the scaling up of financing for the first 10 years goes exactly in the same direction as SDG would want it in terms of activities, resources, government, pure commercial finance, FDI, portfolio, and so on, and level of intermediation. So there is a need to connect and get the synergies between SDG 9, as it is, as we know it, and the other programs put forward by the other institutions like NEPAD and African Union, whatever. There's a lot of synergy to be created, and that is also a positive to further the objectives and the targets of SDG 9. So now, of course, Christian talked about the systemic approach and vision, and also go along those lines. I think why? Because first of all, some of the preliminary work done by Alison Warhurst on the copper industry in Zambia, I was raising this point, showed that PPP is much larger than just simply public-private bodies interacting or collaborating. There are so many other actors which are involved in that, in those issues of copper mining. Of course, they include the CSOs, the society, all the organizations for defending the rights of the citizens. We have the donors, we have government sphere, of course, research sphere, industry sphere, financial, international organizations. Of course, we have talked about it. And these multi-partner, multi-stakeholders challenges really go in the direction of having a systemic, and this, of course, has been said earlier. We've done some empirical work, not on SDGs and sustainability, but simply on innovation systems and dynamics. We looked at several countries, both in North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, and it seems one of the outstanding conclusions that there are no systems there which works according to the systemic vision, which is, of course, making performances in both in developed, advanced countries and some emerging countries. And particularly, if you look at this sphere as the system, you see a lot of key actors actually excluded from the system, including SMEs, including civil society, but enterprises. And the whole issue, how to get all these stakeholder of these actors within the system. That is one of the, and so that it could look like this, because unless you have some coordination, interaction, and of course some people even talked about coalition, and you see how this interaction of this between all the various key players and stakeholders had to be dense and intense. This is actually an example taken from an advanced country, and this is a type of model which we would aim at if we wanted really innovation to serve sustainable development goals, and simply that innovation is a key element driving industrialization, and in particular manufacturing, because we're not talking about the extractive industry. And of course, there are two or three points I will raise. One, the informal economy. I mean, we talked about it, and we had some research done in our network, and we see that a big proportion of the manufacturing is out of the formal sphere. So that is important. But on the other hand, there are a lot of success stories within the informal economy. I've done some work in the Global X, and it shows, so how can you actually get that creativity, that potential, those synergy to be geared towards advancing, furthering sustainable development goals. And last but not least, but there are so many other issues I've just selected because of time, the diaspora participation challenges to SDG 9 in Africa. And we believe, as you see, the figures are staggering, estimate $53 billion. But it's not only money, it's about knowledge, it's about creativity, it's about entrepreneurship. There's a huge potential. And I think actually the SDG 9 give us and give the African governments the opportunity to really think hard how to get this potential back to the country through various means to be able to achieve SDGs on time. This is a historical opportunity to get really the diaspora in the game. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Sorry if I have been through.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much, Prof. It's really interesting, to see somebody advocating, industrialization of Africa after being, asleep for many centuries. I think it's time for that giant, to wake up and contribute its share to the world economy, and particularly industrialization. Any question? Yes, Prof.
Thank you very much indeed for your very good presentation. Actually, in Sudan, we have the experience of public-private partnership in 1980s. We have a big company called Kunana Sugar Company. It was a very wonderful combination of partnership between public sector and private sector around the globe, and very successful. And they brought very high technology. And we have, if we have 100 companies like Kenana, we should be fully industrialized by this country, by this time. But unfortunately, theoretically, yes, we can say anything as you plan. But practically, to apply anything in Africa is very difficult. The most common problem in Africa is institutional failure. Good governance, rule of law. All these problems actually will prevent anybody who is living in diaspora like us to implement theoretically whatever about industrialization or any type of economic system, because they are very serious and fundamental problem in Africa. Number one is institutional failure. We don't have any institutions, not physical institution. I mean the government, they are not working as one institute. It's based on individual and individualism. So it's very difficult to implement anything. And I'm one of the Sudanese Council experts who are living abroad, and I have proposed Sudan Knowledge Economy Foundations. Theoretically, I presented everything. When we come to the implementation, nobody is ready to listen to anything. So how you are going to apply all these wonderful policy framework and all the process you have mentioned in Africa?
Okay, thank you, Sadiq. Yes, Prof, do you want to comment?
An observation. It's more an observation than you go along the lines, because it is a systemic failure as well. When I talked about the system of innovation, one of the reasons why these systems are not working in a systemic way, it's because institutional failure. So it's throughout, I think, why the SMEs are not being committed, involved in doing and in diversifying the economy. It is also institutional failure. So it is throughout the issues. That is, of course, the common theme, unfortunately. And this is part also of innovating new systems which can overcome the systemic failure. But at least we identify where the problems are. That is it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I think there is a question there. Yes, I promise to come back to you.
Yes, sorry, it took some time. So I was wondering, do you believe that during the course of development of these ecosystems in Africa, that we will see a maintained high level of participation of the citizens? And what I mean is, like right now you have numbers between 15 and 30% of the population starting companies, which is rather high compared to Europe or America, for example. Is that something that can be maintained?
Yeah, maintaining a system is to have the enabling environment, the right environment. So one of the important issues now, how to bring that environment which can make it sustainable. Because you have struggling figures, people creating startups and companies. But look at the other side, with the next 5 years, how many failures, how many people leave the market actually? Because this is an important issue you have to tackle. Is the environment enabling those companies to actually diversify, to innovate, and to participate to SDG goals?
Thank you. Just the last question, I think, there, and then I'll move on. Yeah, please be brief and quick.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you very much, Professor Djeflat, for a very interesting and a very significant paper. Because if we recall the size of informal economy around the world in many different countries, it's very sizable. So if we could somehow, through an innovation system to bring the informal sector to be formalized and we create sustainable job, I think we're making a major contribution to sustainable development. And then my question to you is really, when you look at this very complex innovation ecosystem that you just mapped out, and I wonder what is and what could be the knowledge management system that be put into place in order to generate something which we can replicate and scale up further. My name is Li Jia Senayu from Center for Socioeconomic Development. Thank you.
Thank you for a very interesting question. And in fact, when I talked about getting away from silos, I was referring to your work, which you presented yesterday. Excellent work. No, I think it's an issue. So innovation system, anyhow, it's only part of the knowledge system. It's not disconnect, but this is because innovation, there was some debate yesterday. It's not something which is top-down. It's innovation throughout the, at lower grade within the enterprise, or all this tacit knowledge which you have to mobilize, what my Aalborg friend called the DUI, doing, using, interacting. This is how to harness. If you can harness that, then you are more or less in the knowledge economy and recognizing that things become obsolete. So I don't disconnect them. I think one is just a part of furthering the other.
Okay, thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.